Dinero, Dean Thomas, how are you?
What's up, boys? How's life? Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear
Yes.
you perfect.
Okay,
How are
good.
you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
How do you
I'm
juggle so much? You got ESPN and down in South Florida, Sirius XM. Dana White probably hollers at you and says, "We got to, uh, film a few weeks, get on that private jet." And then, of course, you're coaching boxers now, MMA fighters. Man, that's a lot of hats to wear.
I know, man. Well, you know what it is, man. First off, I need an assistant. So if there's anybody out there who wants to be my assistant, I need an assistant. But I mean, it's all everything I do is kind of related. I'm just talking about fights. I'm having a good time. I'm having fun. So being able to juggle all this stuff, man, is like I'm always just prepared because I'm just being myself. So it's easy.
Got it. All right. Well, let's start with what you're showing off right now to us, and that's a Tyron Woodley t-shirt. He's got a big fight coming up against Jake Paul. How's that going along? Have you guys even started the nitty-gritty, or is it just, hey, get that weight down, go run before we really start tightening up the hands?
Well, to be honest with you, man, like I'm not really a part of his camp for this. He's been doing his thing with Mayweather, and he's been in South Florida with some guys down there training. But he's getting sharp, man. I've been keeping tabs on him, and he's getting sharp. But for this type of fight, like I don't really need to be there. You know what I'm saying? Like he needs to get with boxing people and have that boxing mentality because that's really what this fight comes down to. Can Tyron Woodley lace up them gloves and be a boxer? So, we talked about it though, and everything is good. I'm hoping that I can go at least go to the fight or whatever. But either way, man, I got faith in my boy in this one, and I know the world is counting on him, and I don't expect him to disappoint.
Do you think that's the right strategy? Because I'd like to see some sort of an MMA fighter appear in some way. And by that, I'm actually presenting the fact that I'd like for Tyron to be a little dirty. And if he gets warned, then he gets warned. But I don't know. Not to say that he's facing a world-class boxer. He's not. He's facing somebody that's been in the sport for 2 years, they say. But what would you prefer? Do you think he needs to get a little bit of, a little dirty, lock up them arms, yank a shoulder, something?
Well, he can. Tyron can get dirty. But what people don't realize is that Tyron can box too. And it's hard to really kind of say that and for people to believe it because of what you've seen in his fights. Because especially in his recent fights, I mean, he hasn't shown a lot of boxing, just kind of, he hasn't really shown up at all. But when you talk about like some of his earlier fights, all you've seen is that big right hand. But what people don't realize is that he loves to box. I think he liked boxing more than MMA actually, because that was the one thing that was never a problem getting him to do in camp. Wrestling is hard. No one likes to do that. No one likes to run. No one likes to do anything. But boxing is something that Tyron has always loved. He never had a problem doing that. And I think this is his calling, to be honest with you. And I think that he can actually show people that he can really box. I mean, everything, jab, left hook. I mean, he's got it all, man. He doesn't just have a right hand.
Well, Coach, I do want to say that even though he lost his last couple, he really did throw more. He had more output, and I really enjoyed. It's tough to tell that to a boxer an MMA fighter who lost. But I gotta say that I sometimes I think he's a little too hard on himself. I really enjoyed the early part of the Burns fight because the output, the old Tyron Woodley, did come out in some of those fights. But that said, he's getting a little older. Now he has this going on with boxing. But what do you think is the future of Tyron in MMA?
I don't know. You know what? Like, it's hard to say. Like, I don't know if he's going to return to MMA, especially now that he's doing this boxing match. I truly believe that he was more so destined to box than do MMA. I really think that he really prefers boxing over MMA. And the fact that he's getting this big payday and this high profile fight, I believe that that's his calling. And I believe that he's going to ride with that. And he's going to get this win. He's going to get a rematch, get another win. And then I can see him doing more boxing matches against, different guys, different, some older guys or maybe some other celebrities. I can see him doing that. But I don't really see him coming back. And this is just me. Like, I haven't talked to him about this. This is just my personal opinion. But I can't see him coming back to try to make another run in MMA. It just doesn't make sense.
Gotcha. All right. Well, he definitely has iced his fair share of opponents for sure. We know that power in them hands, and you know better than we do. Hey, let's talk about another one of your guys. I know you're not officially with American Top Team, like in the capacity that you were in the past, but you probably spilled a lot of blood, sweat, and tears with this guy, and that's Dustin Poirier. He's in that big fight versus Conor McGregor this Saturday. I don't know if you knew, but UFC 264 is on Saturday.
Oh my God, it's on Saturday.
Yeah. What do you think of that fight? Can you break it down? I know you can keep it objective, even though Poirier's, same team, but
oh yeah, for sure. I can certainly keep it objective. The thing is, it really, to me, this really is going to be determined by how Conor comes out, how he approaches the fight. Now, when you look at the two fighters, in my opinion, Conor is probably the more talented in terms of skill. Like he's a talented, coordinated individual. His timing is impeccable. Like he's just really good at what he does. But Dustin is an absolute dog. He's probably one of the grittiest, grimiest fighters in the game. I mean, he's someone to look up to in terms of fighting with this type of style. And that's not to say that he's not skilled. He's very skilled. But in terms of priority of when you look at his attributes, I think his grit and his grind is what really, really sets him apart. So we know what Dustin's going to bring to the table. That's the type of fighter he is. He brings that grit, that grind, that heart. But Conor don't have that, and a lot of people may confuse that because Conor's so good at what he does. He's really good and he's so talented, but Conor don't have that. So to me, I think of this fight as like this. If Conor comes out and he doesn't put Dustin away, or if he doesn't even win the first round, there's absolutely no way he's going to win this fight. Just because he's not the comeback type fighter. He's not that type of kid. He's the type of guy that has to be the hammer, and he has to always rely on leading the dance. If somebody else is leading, he can't come back. So he's got to get off early. He's got to start strong. He's got to get some good hits in, and he can't take a lot of punishment. He can't allow himself to go, whoa, Dustin's better than I thought. Because the moment he thinks that, he's going to lose this fight. So in my opinion, it's going to come down to that. Who can impose their will? To me, I do see it hard for Conor to be able to come out and have any semblance of grit. Because think about it, fellas. This guy is the richest, the highest paid athlete of last year. How do you see your name on the Forbes list in the highest spot and then still be like, yeah, man, I want to train hard? I don't see it. I've never seen that before, but you never know. But in my opinion, Dustin wins this fight. I think he does it, gets it done within 3. I think he puts Conor away. I think they stop it. I don't think Conor's going to quit, but I think they're going to stop it.
Dean, there was such a big gap between fight number 1 and fight number 2. Now there's a smaller gap here. Who does that benefit? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of this fight happening so quickly?
Well, I mean, when you think about fight number 1 and number 2, there were so many differences in that fight. That was at 145, and we all know that Dustin didn't have his best fights at 145. We know that Conor had his best fights at 145, but now they're different. They're older. So I think now they're probably at the weight they should be and in their prime. So I think that kind of neutralizes everything now, the fact that they're older and they're probably in their appropriate weights. But I think the fact that Dustin just won that last one just a few months ago favors him. I think the momentum is in his favor. I think the more confidence is going to be in his favor. I mean, Conor got put to sleep, and he didn't just like lose a decision. He got put to sleep. And when he was getting hit on the fence, like you saw in his face a bit of fear when he was getting hit. Like there was something about his face where he looked afraid. And when he went down, he was out. He was out cold. So, there's no way he can have those memories and go into this fight fully confident. Like there's always going to be a piece of him thinking about, man, this guy knocked me out. He's capable of knocking me out. So I think going into this fight, not being able, not having that much time separated from that, those guys are still very similar to what they were. And let's face it too, we haven't even seen what Dustin's original game plan was going to be in that last fight because he started throwing them kicks on a whim. I talked to him about that. He said, man, I heard him with that kick, so I just kept going back to it. So that wasn't even his original plan. So whatever his original plan is, he'll be able to utilize that. But we do know that he can adapt. We don't know if Conor is going to be able to adapt. So I think that this short turnaround favors Dustin.
MMA just combat sports in general brings so much emotion to the table. How much will that press conference today tell us? Will it paint any type of story of in which direction this fight could go?
No, because You can I don't even know why we're going to have one. We could just have any random Conor press conference because we know what's going to happen in the press conference. Conor's going to talk a lot of trash. He's going to try to get under Dustin's skin. I don't believe Dustin will allow it to happen. I think Dustin's like, you know what? I'm not falling for them tricks anymore. I saw what he did to me last time. And that's another thing, too. When they fought the first time, no one knew how good Conor was. No one knew how talented he was. So people kind of looked past him. They just thought he was a big mouth. So no one really knew. And Dustin was kind of the guinea pig that found that out. Because prior to that, he had beat Marcus Brimage, and they were just like, but Marcus isn't very good anyway. When he beat Dustin, that's when people started to pay attention. But now everyone knows how good he is. So I don't think that that's going to be a factor. And I don't think that the press conference is going to be a factor because we know that Conor's going to win the press conference. Conor's very good at talking. Dustin, he says what he has to say, but I think he's going to remain calm and just go, you know what? I know what this guy brings to the table. He's a big mouth, but he's very good. I respect him for that. But I'm going to let him say what he's going to say, and I'm going to show up on Saturday night and put him away.
Coach, we see in other sports just how significant a home field advantage is, right? Usually, not all the time, but a lot of times the home team wins. Before the pandemic, Conor McGregor fans would travel in drones, right, all over. We don't know how many are going to show up, but when they do, is there something to that energy that they bring as a fighter? Could you ever feel almost like a home field advantage? And does it get in your head at all?
Yeah, you can, but it also depends on the fighter because some fighters don't like the home field advantage. They feel the pressure from it. Like the more introverted type of fighters feel more pressure from the home team. They would prefer to be the away team. I think Conor prefers to be the home team. I think he feels energized by that, which is why I think he only fought Dustin at in the last time in Abu Dhabi when they allowed fans in there. They allowed about 2,000 fans in there. And I think he did that because he needed that energy. He couldn't fight him in the Apex where there was no one there and he had to hear the breathing and the silence. But he needed the energy of the fans. So no matter where Conor fights, he's always going to have the home field advantage because these Irish dudes show up in drones. I mean, it'd be black dudes with Irish flags on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm telling you, man, these Irish dudes show up in drones and support Conor McGregor, and that's good for him. I think he needs that, and he's going to have a home field advantage here, regardless of whether it's in the States.
I think the first time we interviewed you, we probably had an introduction like MMA fighter, Dean Thomas. It probably took George a minute to get through your intro now with all the hats that you hold. Throughout that whole process, that whole journey, was there ever a significant moment that you passed on that could have taken you in a completely different direction in your life?
I talk about this all the time, is that losing to BJ Penn was probably the best thing that ever happened to me because it let me know that fighting wasn't the only thing I can do. And it wasn't the most, it was just, it's one fight. So, and I lost that fight and it put things into perspective for me that there are many different directions I can take in life. Because if I had won that fight, I might be where BJ's at right now. Our career paths took a different trajectory. Like he went up, I went kind of down, and then now it kind of flipped back around because I was able to, to ride that wave and come back. But I think that the BJ fight, losing to BJ, said, you know what? Fighting ain't the most important thing in the world. It's important, but it's not the most important thing in the world. And there's many things that you can do in order to capitalize and have a livelihood. And that's really what did it for me, is losing to BJ. And every so often I think back to that and go, man, I'm so glad I got knocked out by BJ because right now I probably would have been still trying to be this hungry fighter, coming out of retirement or doing bare knuckle or something like that. And that's the last thing I'm thinking about ever doing.
You want to have a little bit of fun?
I always want to have fun.
All right. If you had to guess, what's the headline of this interview? We were kind of joking about that before the interview. Take a guess.
My guess, Dean Thomas thanks BJ Penn for a successful career.
Maybe. That's up to the writers.
I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I don't know if I said anything really worthy. I'm trying to think of something to say worthy so that you guys can have a good headline and be like,
I think it'll be going back to Woodley was I don't know if he said born to box, but he's going to take the boxing or something like that. I think it'll be that. But I think there'll be multiple recaps, honestly, because that was really good insight hearing you talk about that fight with BJ Penn. But I did want to add to that, Dean. So you part of the era of maybe just after the Pioneers, but like that second wave, you know? So maybe not UFC 1993 or, you know, multiple fights for one night or whatever. But still, the money hadn't gotten to you guys yet. And then, you know, you took to coaching and game planning. And now you're, like I say, we hear you on Sirius XM, ESPN in South Florida, Dana White looking for a fight. Was there ever a point where you're like, MMA paid off for me? Like, not just financially, but like I made this a career and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, you know what? And I think about that every day, and I'm so blessed because, you know, when I got into MMA, when I started doing this in 1995, no one knew that it would be where it is today. And I really threw everything I had into this. And especially like in the early 2000s, you know, when I just really like between 2000 and 2005, where I really just put everything I had into MMA and it made it work. And I made it work. And somehow, you know, with the help of like the UFC and like everybody involved in it and, you know, just everybody, you guys, you know what I'm saying? Like you guys have been around since then. So like with everybody's involvement, we just grew this sport. And for me to still be involved is such a blessing. Like for me to have taken that chance on something that was unknown, on something that had never been done before, and to have taken that chance is amazing for me. And I still think about that. And I still count my blessings every day that I have a career and a livelihood on something that's never been done before. You know, I went to Extreme Couture yesterday and was teaching the guys and I'm looking around the room and I'm like, you know, half of these people in here probably don't know me. The other half probably just think I'm the guy from Dana White looking for a fight, but they don't realize that I was the first fighter to ever fight in Las Vegas. The very first fight that UFC threw. Yes, I fought Fabiano Iha. And like you said, I've done everything. So the fact that I'm still here and still able to do things, like I said, without having to lace up the gloves or do bare knuckle to stay relevant, it's just a blessing for me, man. I'm so happy that I'm still able to be here.
I think the only thing I can hold against you is that you didn't go up there and shove Dana White off that cliff. That's probably my only disappointment. But hey, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is, I can't swim, and basically what would have happened is Dana's people would have threw me in, and they would have left me there. So, like, that's why I didn't do it. Dana got people around him at all times, man, that will do something to you.
I'm 51 years old, and I was yelling at the screen going, jump for crying out loud. All right, you know, you egged us on, you teased us, but get it over with, you know, because it's not like the Prez doesn't have balls. He's done some pretty ballsy things, but it didn't look that high to me. He still should have jumped. You know, he
should have jumped. He should have jumped, man. You should have heard the little kids out there on the beach. They were like, "Oh, you're such a bleep. You're a bleep," and I was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah. All right, last one, Coach. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask you because you prepped for both guys. But how about a quick one on Burns and Stephen Thompson? How do you see this one playing out?
Man, this is such an interesting fight. You know, I think Burns, you know, after watching Burns fight and spending some time around him, I do believe that he might be the most all-around talented guy in the welterweight division. And I think he's even more talented than Usman. I don't know if he can beat Usman because what Usman does so well is a very difficult thing to stop. But I think Burns is more talented than anybody else in the division. And with that being said, Wonder Boy also has that skill set that's very hard to get past. And that's being able to control distance the way he does. And that makes it hard for him to fight. Wonder Boy does two things well, is he controls distance well, and he allows you to stay in the fight and want to strike with him. For whatever reason, he allows you to feel as though you can strike with him. And then before you know it, the time has run out and you lost a decision, or somehow he caught you and knocked you out. He's very difficult in that way. So I think this fight comes down to, can Burns get close enough to him and land a shot? If Burns can get close enough to him and land a shot, he has a chance. If Burns can get close enough to him and take him down, he's definitely going to win because the disparity in skill level between their ground games is going to be drastic, and you'll see it right away if it does go to the ground. But Wonder Boy is so good at just staying away from you, touching you, staying away, and thinking that you have a chance. And then before you know it, you're either knocked out or the round is over, and you're like, damn, what happened? So this is a very tough fight to call. You know, every day I juggle with it, and I go, you know, Burns is going to catch him somewhere, and then I go, there's no way he's going to be able to get past that, you know, that range, man, because Wonder Boy is so sharp with that range. So it's a difficult fight, man. I really don't know how to call it.
Excellent analysis by one of the top coaches in MMA, former fighter Dean Thomas. Catch him on Josh Cohen and the home team on ESPN. West Palm, I've heard him on SiriusXM Fight Nation as well. And, of course, Dana White looking for a fight along with Matt Serra and Dana White. Dean, it's great to have you on the show. Great analysis. We love having you on. But most of all, man, thank you for your contribution to this sport. You've done so much wearing different hats. You've done them all very well. So we really appreciate you doing that. That's why this sport keeps growing and growing, because of guys like you.
No. It's growing because of guys like you, because the media, people don't think that the media does their job. You guys are the media, and you guys keep us alive. So thank you very much. And I would just want to say, people, make sure y'all check out the Dean Diaries, where I was spent some time with Gilbert Burns and his family. And you can watch his two sons beat each other up. That was a good episode.
Nice. All right, Dean. Thank you again, man.
I appreciate you guys. Peace.